Okay, we're just going to go ready and pick it up with subpoint D. Subpoint D says, as modern readers, we may fail to see the gravity of Ham's sin and ask why such a huge curse for gossiping or joking about your parents' failings, question mark. So what happens is there are attempts by some commentators to suggest that maybe Ham was guilty of incest or some other sexual impropriety. It gets kind of disgusting when you think about it, but that's not true. The notions are wrong, and they're wrong because they fail to appreciate the seriousness of the Old Testament and ancient culture's look at family and family duties. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'll get that statement that says, modern readers fail to appreciate how seriously the Old Testament peoples and other ancient cultures took family duties. Quote, honor your father and your mother, end quote. Come right next to the Godward commandments in Exodus 20, comma. In other words, right after how you're going to honor God and have no other gods before you and all of the things associated with God, the very next thing comes the fact that you're supposed to honor your mother and your father, okay? So honor your mother and your father come right next to the God commandments in Exodus 20. And striking or cursing your father or mother could be punished by death. Exodus 21:15 and 17. And cited by Jesus in Mark 7:10. And also, I want to make a correction to a statement that I made. It was brought up to me, and I don't know what kind of brain problem I was having, brain lapse, that it wasn't necessarily the word I would use, but I won't use the word I would use. Okay, but I had a little bit of a brain lapse when I said, we don't know whether Ham was a believer or not. Of course we do. Remember, the whole thing about generations is they start with believers only. So everybody that was on that ark was a believer. I don't know why I would even suggest that they weren't. Okay, so, beginning of a civilization, I'm sorry, I said generation, beginning of a civilization. Remember when we started with civilizations, the whole point about a civilization is that it ends where, it starts with the believers only and it ends with a judgment, right? And so the civilization of perfection or whatever, or we can call it that. It started with with Adam, right, and it ends with the flood, and then we have the civilization of the Gentiles starting, excuse me, the next civilization starting with the after the flood with Noah. Okay, and going on. Okay, so the idea is it's civilization starts with believers only. So my comment in the first class about maybe Ham not being a believer, of course he was a believer, but he was a malfunctioning believer. Okay, that was a dumb statement on my part, and I got caught on it, and that's good. I expect you guys to catch me and let me know when I do something silly like that. And I occasionally words come out of my mouth that I don't know where they're coming from. Subpoint E. The subsequent history of Canaan shows the fulfillment of the curse. This is really the clearest manner possible. It's demonstrable through history, right? Shows the fulfillment of the curse. So the curse, give you the background. The curse says, so when Noah woke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. So he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants. He shall be to his brothers." Okay, so they're going to be over him. He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." And Noah lived 350 years after the flood. So the idea is that the Canaan is going to be the slaves, right? So the subsequent history of Canaan shows the fulfillment of the curse. When Israel took possession of the land, Canaan became the slave of Shem, just like the curse. Shem, the line of Shem leads to Israel. Okay, the line of Shem is the line of the Messiah. Okay, so it became the slave of Shem, and you can put in parentheses Israel. And when Tyre, Tyre, that was part of the Canaan line, and when Tyre fell before Alexander the Great, comma, and later when Carthage succumbed to the Roman conquerors, Canaan's lineage became the slave of Japheth. So Japheth is essentially, his lineage are the Gentiles, the ones that are inheriting the Mediterranean from the western and northern part, Greece, Rome, all the way up to Nordic countries. Those are Japheths, and I'm going to show you that here in a map in a second. Okay, so that shows that they fell. Canaan and his line fell to these two lines. Subpoint F. Also in this same blessing and curse, we have the line, comma, quote, "May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem." Remember I said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants he shall be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his servant." Okay, so we have also in the same blessing and curse, we have the line, comma, quote, may God enlarge Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, period, end quote. You go, well, what does this mean? Does this mean that Japheth is going to be a servant to Shem? Right? No. Let me tell you what it means here. This means that Japheth and his descendants will enjoy blessings from God as a result of Shem and his descendants not only being the priests, but also the line of the Messiah. So the idea already gives us the idea that Gentiles are going to be included in God's blessings, because Japheth is primarily the Gentiles, which are going to be spreading out across, across the world, right? And we're going to be, as a result of Shem and his lineage, we're dwelling in his tents, quote unquote, because we have the fantastic blessings associated with his heritage, okay? Also in the Talmud, which of course is the body of Jewish tradition, their civic law and their ceremonial law, this sees his blessing also fulfilled in the other direction, where you have the Greek language, in other words, Japheth's descendants, okay, being the ones that get the opportunity to write the writings of the New Testament scripture, right? So you have this blessing kind of going back and forth between Shem and Japheth. In the meantime, Ham is out of the picture, okay? Point 6. Conclusion of the scriptural account of Noah. After his blessing and cursing, we hear no more about the patriarch except for the sum of his years. Chapter 9, verses 28 and 29. He lived another 350 years after the flood, and died at the age of 950. That's a lot of birthday candles. Yeah, I think of those birthday candles in the cake, and it reminds me of the Boy Scout thing we did, where several of us went up to. We were camping up close to Flagstaff, and so I took some of the Boy Scouts up to the observatory up there. And while we're up there, a couple of the other scout leaders and kids stayed back in the campground area. And when we came back, they had this fire that was so huge, I think you could see it from outer space. It was big. It was fun. It was a good time. Anyway, that would be the birthday cake of Noah, 950 candles. Okay, continue point. There has been speculation throughout history as to what happened to Noah. after this account, and many ancient cities claim to have been visited by or been the final resting place of Noah, comma, but there is no evidence of this. It's sort of like here, in our culture, we have hotels or places, particularly back east, obviously, right? That say George Washington slept here, right? Or George Washington dined here, or he stopped here, or whatever, right? You'd have these places, and there's really no evidence, right? Give me a picture, I want to see, prove it. But it's just a way for many of these places to try and have some form of claim, right? Some form of notoriety, so that they can bring visitors to their city. Point 7, Noah and archaeology. And I put archaeology in here because there are these like the Epic of Gilgamesh was found through archaeology. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not going to talk about they dug up a bunch of stuff or they found the ark or anything like that. Okay, Noah and archaeology: colon. In the Sumerian flood of the account, in the Sumerian account of the flood, the flood hero appears under the name Ziusudra. Ziusudra. And in the Babylonian version, as Utnapishtim. Upishtim. The Babylonian account is contained in the 11th chapter of the, quote, Gilgamesh epic, period, end quote. Gilgamesh is spelled just like it sounds, Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh. Now, I gave you the names. I don't know why. It's not that they're that important, but the idea is that this concept of a flood is in all of these different histories, right? These national histories. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the Gilgamesh one because it's the most complete one that we have. We actually have it documented in writing. That's why I said archaeology. They've discovered it, right? And we actually have it in writing. So we'll talk a little bit about that one. And compare it to the one, the flood that we have, so we can finish off this idea of the flood. And then, and I don't know if we'll get to it today or not, but hopefully we will. We'll get to the descendants of Noah. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and who their descendants were. Okay, so subpoint, capital A. Of all ancient traditions and stories, similar to the one in the Old Testament, The Babylonian flood story shows the most striking and detailed similarity to the Bible, colon. And these are the things that are going to be similar, okay, colon. Divine warning of a flood, semicolon. Instruction to build an ark or boat, to preserve human and animal life, semicolon. Description of the landing place, semicolon. The sending out of birds, semicolon. In Gilgamesh, the birds were a little bit different. I'll let you look that up. And the sacrifice upon exit, period. But they are drastically different in their theology. Point B. On point B, I'm going to give you these differences. Okay, so capital B. In the Babylonian version, the gods, little g, of course, the gods agreed on a flood to stop human population growth. See, the gods were afraid they were getting way outnumbered and there's too many humans, right? So we got to kill off the humans, okay? So it was to stop human population growth. But one dissented and tipped off his worshiper. I know what it is. I think this guy used to be up on the rubber at one point in time, maybe. Or the rubber was underneath it. I don't know. Okay, but one dissented and tipped off his worshiper, Utnapishtim. In other words, the hero. You say the hero. This guy. Utnapishtim. When the flood was unleashed, comma, the gods cowered before it. Like dogs unable to control it. Period. See, so these gods weren't very omniscient or omnipresent, or I should say omnipotent. They weren't omnipotent, right? Hey, let's cause this flood and kill all the humans. Okay, when they start the flood, it's like, oh no, it's out of control, right? They couldn't handle it. Okay? And so they don't drown us. So they cowered, right? They were afraid of it as well. Okay. So God's cowered before it, like dogs unable to control it. After the flood, the gods hurried to the sacrifice Because they were hungry. Since sacrifices had stopped during the flood. And these gods, unlike our God, needed to eat. So they're not omnipotent, for sure. They can't control their own flood, and then of course they are not above eating. They're not. They can't. They have to eat. So what kind of God has to eat, right? That's not a very good God. So it tells you that the sacrifices weren't to worship the gods. The sacrifices were to feed the gods in that particular religion. Okay. Here's another telltale on the gods and their lack of omniscience and omnipotence. One of the top gods was surprised to find a man had survived the flood. So this God was neither omnipotent nor omniscient. Okay. While the Gilgamesh epic ends with the gods, with the gods inventing miscarriage and female infertility, sure. While the Gilgamesh epic ends with the gods inventing miscarriage and female infertility to curb population growth. See, they were still concerned about population. They tried to kill everybody. It didn't work. Someone escaped. Okay, at least two people must have escaped. so, so, so they decide, okay, well, how are we going to do it now? Well, we're going to invent miscarriage and infertility. So while the Gilgamesh epic ends with the gods inventing miscarriage and female infertility to curb population growth, Noah is urged 3 times to, quote, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth. Period, end quote. Point capital C. So, unlike the Babylonian version, where the gods are only concerned for themselves, and try to control or destroy the human race, comma, the Bible version tells us that despite sin, comma, God is on our side, and concerned for the welfare of the human race. So when you go back even into these, and you look at the ancient Near Eastern study of their gods, the gods generally created mankind to be their servants, right? To be their slaves, to do everything for them. And so it's all about them. Their gods are me, 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 right? Where our God gets his worship by the fact that we do it voluntarily through our volition. He doesn't force us to do these things. All the way to the point where, as an unbeliever, you can go right to your death unbelieving, right? You'll be punished at the end. Obviously, you're going to spend eternity in the lake of fire. But he never comes down, twists your arm, and makes you do it. He doesn't make you worship him. You have the free will to worship him or not. That's the main difference, the fantastic difference with our God, is it's all about volition. We always have the right to function properly or improperly. We get disciplined, obviously, for improper function, but we have the right to do good or to do bad. That is true freedom. The other religions don't provide that kind of freedom. Look at the Muslims. They don't have any freedom. If their women had freedom, would they wear the stuff they wear? Would they be subjected like they are to the types of laws that Sharia imposes on them? Absolutely not. Right? That shows that there is no understanding of volition and free will. So we have a fantastic God that gives us that. I can give you. Let's get point 8. We at least have an intro, and then A, B, and C. We have point 8, A, B, and C, and then we're done. But I can give you point 8, and then we'll come back in and do A, B, and C next week. So point 8 says the descendants of Noah, colon. You know what? No, we're not. It's 27 after. By the time we sing and everything, it'll be 11:30, and everybody. So we'll save it all up. What I'm going to show you, essentially, is how you have all the various descendants and kind of in a map, right? And we'll go over that a little bit. But the idea is that we have some areas associated with Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And like I was saying, Japheth is here. It goes all the way up. The map doesn't go all the way up, but it goes all the way up to Scandinavia, and all of that would be descendants of Japheth. Also, what that tells us is over here, China, Russia, all of those areas, right? Including Asia, Micronesia, all those kinds of things would be associated actually with Japheth, right? So that's where that comes from. And then, of course, because you have that, then what that means is you got Eskimos, and then you have the Native Americans, and you have the whole migration to North America associated with Japheth. So Japheth grew tremendously, and then Ham, of course, would end up going down into Africa and down into that area there. Okay, so we'll get into that next week. We'll go ahead now then and close with a song.